Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews, and people that's listening and been tuning in to the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews, I know that it's, some of you Hebrews are just coming into knowledge. Some of you Hebrews are just tuning in to the Israelite Brotherhood site, and I want to thank you people that have subscribed and so forth and been keeping up with the history. Okay, what I want to discuss is, to the Israelite just coming into knowledge of history, the ups and downs, and I want to kind of like be able to set you on a path to where, you can avoid all these unnecessary obstacles, and those unnecessary obstacles is basically going to be translated in doctrines. We got a whole lot of doctrines in the Israelite community, and you got a whole bunch of people thinking that they the leaders of the Israelite community. If you check out some of these people that say that they leaders in the Israelite community and you listen to their doctrine and how they believe, man, you're going to be like, oh man, it's horrible. And then, you have to compare their doctrine to some sound history to know that their doctrine is off. And I'm trying to have some sound history for the Israelite, for the whole Israelite community. That's what the Israelite Brotherhood is about. We got 80, 90,000 hours of continuous research, so I kind of like know what I'm talking about, and I can show you the difference. And this difference kind of like center around the Hebrews that be using Jewish myths and Jewish history are gonna be the Hebrews that kind of like, when you look at they doctrine and how they function as an Israelite community, you're gonna see that them Hebrews is kind of crazy. And then I believe that some of these Israelite organizations were set up by the government to stop us from coming into heritage. Like, say for once, you ain't gonna be on the corner hollering and making up a whole bunch of noise. You ain't gonna be on the corner making up a whole bunch of noise if you was telling the truth. And if the beat seen that you had some truth, they wouldn't let you be out there on the street corner saying nothing, no matter what kind of right you got. We ain't got the same rights as the other ethnic groups in America had. We don't have the same rights. Even though they say we do, we know we don't. And we know that we function by two different laws and stuff. It's a law for the others, and then it's a law for us and how they do us. But, you Hebrews just coming into heritage, I know it's a turn off because you see these brothers dressed in these, attire that one would associate with the ancient days. Possibly Hebrews dressed like that. We was the inventors of style too. So, but the Hebrews that's, on the corners, that's hooping and hollering, that's cussing people out, and they feel like, what they doing is right, and I'm here to give guidance to the Hebrew Israelites that want to come into heritage free of all the friction and nonsense and want to get just straight down to the business. You kind of know that you're Israelite. If some of you, then stumbled across my videos, I show in depth how we the Israelite, and it's only one way that we could be the Israelites. It's only one way that we could be the Israelites, and that's if you coming off the Tanakh history, and if you coming out the book of Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah was our last act on the promised land. We Hebrews broke the covenant during the Babylonian wars. All the tribes. We broke the covenant during the Babylonian wars, and we ran into Africa by way of Egypt. And didn't no Hebrew go into Africa to do the covenant. That's a fact, and I'm going to show all this, but I want to give guidance to you Hebrews that's coming into heritage, that want to be free men of all this nonsense with all these 50 different doctrines. I'm going to just show you what happened to us, and then, you can kind of use this history that I'm showing you as a weighing station against the other Hebrews and their information. I got proof that the other Israelite organizations, if they ain't studied and basically studied with the Israelite Brotherhood, that they 9 out of 10 gonna have Jewish myths mixed in their history, mixed all up in their history. And then that stuff makes some of these Hebrew crazy, because now they think that everybody Hebrews, and they be ranting and hollering and jumping up around, and they think that they done got some old Holy Spirit to save, and now they on the mission. And they eyes confused, and they go out into the world, and they think they, finna say Israel, and it's a bunch of them like that. Some of these folks is even in the promised land, doing this stuff, ratting around with the Jews and so forth. And then, some of the Hebrews that's in the promised land, they can't stand each other. You got a group here, you got a group there. This group say that they real and got more information than this group, and then if you basically look at the groups, man, they using Jewish history. All of them basically gonna come off a 70 AD lie. They gonna come off that 70 AD that the Hebrews ran into Africa because her Edomite temple was destroyed. That John crazy. You got Hebrews, you got Hebrews everywhere. Listen to this here.
Of Beit Israel, Hoshua Mariel, is citing an Israeli law enacted 52 years ago. The law says holy places will be protected.
One Hebrew was marching with the folks, and marching with the folks. Tomas say them, and then if you look at the people he marching with over there, he marching with them Jews, and he marching with them Ethiopian Jews, the people who are not the Israelites. The majority of the Israelites are still in captivity. This.
Yes, to treat the strangers with respect. The Torah says to treat the strangers with respect. All the Jews that believe in the Torah.
Some Jews, some Ethiopians walking with him. You can look at them and tell.
Rise up with us. The Torah says to treat the strangers with respect. The Torah says to treat the strangers with respect.
Man, way over in the promised land.
To treat the strangers with respect. The Torah says to treat the strangers with respect.
Anyway, over in the promised land, marching with the folks there, and then trying to get some recognition amongst them. And then, like I say, them Hebrews, if you check their doctrine, they gonna be coming off that 70 AD lie, or they gonna be coming off that 10 lost tribe myth. And then all them Hebrews that push that 10 lost tribe and that 70 AD doctrine, saying that the Hebrews ran into Africa because her Edomite temple was destroyed. If you look at them, man, they gonna be kind of radical, and then they just ain't gonna, make no sense. They got the passion for the people, and they want to be right. And I know some of them organizations and them leaders, they probably would prefer having the truth, and being on the level that they own. They got a lot of followers. It'll be a blessing to have the truth and then have a lot of followers. But these groups, man, they got, followings that's based upon the lies that they've been teaching, about our origin. Like I say, it's a whole bunch of men, and these Hebrew organizations, and they got like 50 different doctrines.
The world,
50
men,
different doctrines.
If they saw a woman that they like, they can grab the woman up and rape the woman, man.
Look, man, I'm talking about all kind of stuff, man. They be saying all kind of stuff.
Oh boy, where you at? Come on, my y'all. This one I got. Wait,
listen, these Hebrew organizations, all the
And these
ones that
tribes,
be out,
whether y'all want to hear
all
it
the ones that
or
be
y'all
out in the
don't,
streets.
we coming
Look,
out here to give y'all the good
look,
news.
look, all the ones that
coming
be
out
out in the street,
to hear it
all
or
the
y'all
ones that
don't.
be out in the street, all the ones that be out in the street, gonna kind of like come off them Jewish myths, the myths that the Jews created long time ago, that the Hebrew organizations been accepting as true. You know, they've been accepting the myths as true, and then they make they doctrine error. You know what I'm saying? They make them error in their doctrine, and then it make the people who's following them err too and be, you know, false. Because man, if the head is false and then it's all the way down to the feet, that's everybody. The whole body is covered, and then that's them Israelite organizations, and then they be believing in the 10 lost tribes. You know, they say that the Hebrews left Assyria during the Assyrian wars in 722 BC, and then there's some kind of way that, you know, that they left the Assyria and got on ships. Some of them went down through a magic water hole, and then how they end up in the Americas and became the natives, you know, the Incas, the Aztecs, and you know, all this crazy stuff, you know. And then it's kind of funny because, you know, that the people in the Americas ain't domesticate no animals. They ain't have no sheep, they ain't have no goats, they ain't have no horses, they ain't have none of this stuff. They didn't have no wheels, they didn't have no axles, no wheels, they didn't have no houses. We had two-story houses in the promised land. You know, we had an ox law that if your ox should accidentally get loose and go terrorizing the community, how you was responsible for that. You don't have none of this culture or none of this tradition in the Americas, and it's a known fact that, you know, they had buffalo and big animals of burden that you could have turned into animals of burden here in the Americas. And you know, it's just impossible how the Hebrews would have left their culture in the East and then got to the Americas, you know, that left their culture from here and then got way over to the Americas and then didn't have nothing, no sheep, no goats, no cattle, no horses, no domesticated animals, no houses. Man, we had houses with doors. Man, we had windows. Man, we had metalgory. Man, we can smelt metals and dig for stones and so forth. And all that stuff that we use can be seen today because it's been passed on to world civilizations. But for some reason, in some kind of way, the people in South America ain't had none of this. But they want people to think that the Hebrews left Assyria right here and then ended up in the Americas with nothing. No houses, no clothes, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? No turbans, no robes, no nothing. And then no ships, no boats, no nothing. And then they want, you know, everybody to believe that the people in the Americas were Hebrews or once lived in the promised land, and that's false when scientists and the archaeologists trace the Native Americans to the Bering Strait and up in Alaska, and how they come across that land bridge from Asia, from Russia, from right here, that little land bridge right there, you know, with the Bering Sea, and they go all the way to Alaska, and then how they come over on there and then walked all the way down, and how they ain't have no domesticated animals, zero domesticated animals. We Hebrews had animals that we used to farm with, and with the crops and all kind of stuff. So when these Hebrews be teaching this stuff, you people that's coming into heritage, know that that's false history. You got to use common sense. You can read in the Bible about the culture and the things that the Hebrews were exposed to, and then you can compare that to South America tradition and culture, and you'll see that it just don't add up. No, we would have brought something with us. We would have did something over in the Americas that we did in the promised land. And most certainly we couldn't have did without no sheeps and no goats. We'd have had, and then we raised it wheat. We raised the wheat. It would have been impossible for the Hebrews to come to the Americas and then didn't raise no wheat like we was accustomed to. That was one of our main products that we exported to other nations and so forth. That's all in the Tanakh. But you Hebrews that's coming into heritage, you know, you up against a lot. You know, it's really no unity in the community. I know that's a turn off to you. It's too many doctrines. You know what I'm saying? Some of us, not the Israelite Brotherhood, but some of the Hebrew Israelites believe in demigods. You know, some confused on who an Israelite is. You know, you Hebrews just coming into a heritage. You know, you up against a lot. But it's a blessing that you have made it this far and that you do know that you are Israel. You know, if you are descended from the transatlantic slave trade and then you done come into the knowledge that you're Israelite, then that's a blessing from Almighty Yah that you done made it that far. Now, what you need to do is, you know, I know some of you studying and some of you Hebrews gonna fall into the category that I just explained about, the people that believe in the myths. You know, but what you got to do is, you know, you got to read the Tanakh history and then understand world history after that. Basically, Tanakh history is world history. That's like what happened during the Assyrian captivity can be found in the Bible and can be found in world history. What happened during the Babylonian captivity and troubles can be found in the Bible and in world history. And this is what, you know, I want to point out to you Hebrews just coming into heritage is that, you know, if you understand that it was no 10 lost tribes, that's number one. And then number two, if you can understand that it was no Hebrews in the New Testament. No Hebrews in the New Testament. I know some of you gonna, you know, shake your head and be startled because you've been believing in Jesus and you've been believing in the New Testament history. But, you know, I show in history that the people in the New Testament were not the Hebrews, you know, and that the people in the New Testament were the enemies that settled in the Discopolis. You know, Tanakh history in 430 BC. That's going to be the book of Malachi. And then after that, you know, you get blank history for 500 years. 500 years go by and then, you know, they come in with this New Testament and this New Testament history about what they call the common era, the AD, around about 100 AD is when all the books was, you know, put together and they decided on what would be Christianity, and then they, you know, that what you got the New Testament. Okay, Hebrews, it wasn't no Hebrews in the New Testament for the simple reason is that the exiles got destroyed. The people that come back from Babylon, they got destroyed. The Greeks got them. I got videos explaining how the Greeks got them and how they couldn't have passed their heritage over to the people that was in the land when we was taken to Babylon. You know, it's like the 99% ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, and it was like 1% that was captured and then taken to Babylon, and then they was freed by the Persians. And then they come home and they can only live in one area, and that's in Jerusalem or in Judea's inheritance and the cities surrounding Jerusalem, and then how they had to mortgage the land and how so much was happening to them that they vanished. Man, around about Greek times, 332 BC, around about 98 years later, the exiles vanished and there's no trace of them. And then how the people who we didn't destroy all the way back from when we exodus Egypt, the Amorite tribes, and how that they got the heritage. And then I got a video that I just recently, did showing how the Tobiids and the Hasmoneans and so forth come about. But you Hebrews just coming into heritage. It's no Hebrews in the New Testament because you got the Ptolemy and the Lichamus claiming Israelite heritage. And they could be traced to the Jews. And then, how it wasn't no Hebrews in the New Testament is that this king right here, it's this king named Tigernus the Great. Tigernus the Great took 10,000 Jews from Jerusalem or in Judea's inheritance. Just took them and then took them to Armenia, and how none of them was black. None of them was black people, or what we would call, the culture that we have, coming from pigmented peoples. None of them. And that there's no black culture in Armenia that extends from Tigernus the Great, conquest and him kidnapping them Jews from Jerusalem. This is 55 years before Jesus was born. And 10,000 Jews was taken to Armenia and none of them was black. So they show you that something had to happen to the exiles. Something had to happen to the exiles if Tigernus the Great took 10,000 Jews to Armenia and not one of them was black. Where did the exiles go to? They was black. They should, had some pigmentation as the people that ran into Africa to live and stay. That was eventually enslaved. That, we are. Our foreparents. But it wasn't no Hebrews in the New Testament. So, if you can understand that, and then how it was a bunch of Jesus, and how Jesus was just a common name. Jesus was just a common name. And then if you can understand that Herod built that temple in 20 BC. He started to build it in 20 BC. And then how it was destroyed in 70 AD, and how that was Herod Edomite temple, and how he didn't refurbish no temple, and how he built that temple from the ground up. If you Hebrews can understand that, coming into heritage, that'll save you a whole lot of troubles. And you won't get caught up in the snares of those other Israelite organizations that teach that mess, that Herod temple was good. And look, if you read in Revelations, the 7 churches, in Revelations, the 7 churches that Paul and them sent a message to, them 7 churches is in Turkey. And then I got a video showing that Turkey is where the devils lived at underground. That they ain't had nothing but devils underground. When Paul sent his letter to the 7 churches that was in Asia, that's gonna be in Turkey where he did that from. And then if you look underground, the underground cities in Turkey, that's gonna be where the devils live at, and that the Caucasus Mountain is right next to it. So if you Hebrews believing in the New Testament, knowing that the Creator told Prophet Moses everything that would happen to the Hebrews when they broke covenant, and that could nobody save us from our sins, and how in that New Testament Jesus say he the remissions of sin, that his blood is for the remissions of sin, and how the Creator said that nobody can die for you. Nobody can die for you or your sins, and that how everybody had to be put to death for their own sins, and how that's throughout Tanakh history. So if you Hebrews can understand that is no God's Son coming to save you, and that only the Creator Yah can save us, and how he already said what's going to happen. It's already been prophesied. It's just that everything got to play out then that'll save you from getting snared up in these organizations with these dudes teaching that lie, teaching that everybody is Israel, or that we went into a hole in Assyria and got on a magic ship and flew to South America and North America with nothing. You know, that junk don't make no sense. You know, it'll keep you out these groups' hands. You know, it'll keep you out of the hands of these groups that be out in the streets just really just having a good time. You know, they feel, you know, like they doing the right thing, like I said, you know, but them groups, you know, couldn't be outside teaching on no street, no truth, because the government ain't gonna allow it. The government ain't gonna allow you to be on the streets teaching the truth. And that's like me, you know, they done start to delete a video here and there, and it ain't gonna be long before this truth be gone. So you Hebrews better get this knowledge and take it in. You know, you better get this knowledge and take it in. You know, that's like I said, you know, you Israelites just coming into the knowledge of history, you know, man, there's some ups and downs in the Israelite community right now, and we basically gonna have these ups and downs till the Creator bring judgment all the way on this country, and then we get some freedom, and then, you know, the Hebrews, they got truth, you know, you gonna go, you know, what truth is, and it's like, you know, these Hebrew organizations that teach the Jewish myths, you know, I believe that they gonna have to wake up one day to the truth, and that the doctrines that they've been teaching ain't gonna bring no unity to us, and that how that the doctrine that they teaching gonna keep us divided and separated, because, you know, we got clear history now. You know, we know that there was never any 10 lost tribes, and how there was never any Hebrews leaving, running across North Africa to get into Spain and Portugal, because her temple was destroyed in 70 AD. You know, we know those doctrines false, and then that Jesus stuff, or that Yawashi, whatever title you want to call him, and how all this stuff was created by the people we Hebrews abandon our heritage to. See, if you Hebrews coming into heritage can understand that we Israelites abandon our heritage to some real serious folks. You know, I got a video explaining how the Nethinims and all those folks got into our heritage. But the most important understanding coming into the Israelite history to me is understanding what happened to us. What happened to us? See, a lot of Hebrews don't have what happened to us. You know, like I say, that they got those myths, and those myths, you know, everybody in the world share those myths. Those myths say that, you know, that 10 lost tribes lead to the Jews, and really that 10 lost tribes was created to explain all the people that the Sephardi's and the Ashkenazi converted in the other lands that they did trade or conquered in. You know, when they conquered and did trade in the other lands, and then they converted some of them people, that 10 lost tribe myth is used to cover them up, you know, to explain how they are Israelites and so forth. And that's been used for a long time, and that's a con game too, you know, that 10 lost tribe myth. But these are the people that we abandon our heritage to. The Sephardims, the Sephardi's. They are Amorites. They are from the city called Sippar. Sippar is in Babylon. This is where they kept the history of the Babylonian gods at. If you Hebrews just coming into heritage can understand that the Sephardims, the Sephardi Jews today, is only two set of Jews, Ashkenazi and the Sephardis, or the Sephardi groups in Ashkenazi, and that we abandon our heritage to the Sephardi Jews during the Babylonian Wars. If you can understand that, then, you know, man, it's going to help a whole lot. Because then, you know, it's history support this, and it's the only history, is that we abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes during the Babylonian Wars, and that they was placed in Samaria in 722 BC, and how that they had learned our culture, but how that their family, the Nethinims, and all those people that we didn't destroy were kindred to them, and that when we ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, that they had our heritage, that it was a done thing, and they was placed in our land in 722 BC. If you Hebrews coming into heritage can understand that, then you're gonna be almost there. If you can understand that we abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, and that these Babylonian scribes are responsible for the culture that you have now that they call Western civilization, and that how all the different organizations that's being promoted are faded out, that they basically the origin of it. They the originators of it. That's like them movements, the transgender movement, and the gay movement, the gay pride movement, and all them different movements like that can be traced back to Babylon and to the people that we abandoned our heritage to, had a wicked culture that we were supposed to destroy. That's why they trying to make sure we don't ever come back into heritage or have no understanding of our ancient past. Is the reason why, a whole bunch of names been changed around in history and so forth, so they don't make that connection. We don't make that connection with them in their ancient past, and how it was wicked in the past, and how they the masters of the wicked culture today. All right, but you see, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuddar, and from Abel, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So those Babylonian scribes from Sippar would be placed in Samaria in 722 BC, and how we was on Egyptian religion during that time. And being that they was Amorites, kin to the Nethinims and the other Amorites that was in the land, that we had been tricked into allowing them to be servants at the temple, how they was kin to them. So, we would be lost and confused, and we wouldn't do nothing to them people, and how that they would inherit our heritage after we was traced into Africa for saying that we wanted to do the Egyptian religion. See, once we said we wanted to do the Egyptian religion, which we was on for a long time, then, it was over with. And how those people got our heritage. Now, if you Hebrews that's coming into heritage can understand that we abandoned our heritage to some Babylonian scribes, and that those Babylonian scribes are the Sephardi's today. The Sephardi Jews today are the Babylonian scribes that we Hebrews abandoned our heritage to. And you just seen that name Sepharvaim. If you type it in, they're gonna change it one day. But if you type in Sepharvaim, it's gonna translate into Sephardi. Sephardi is the Sephardic and the Sephardim. The Sephardic gonna be mostly mixed with a European like stock, and the Sephardim gonna be mixed with mostly a pigmented like stock. The Arabs and the East Africans and so forth. And those are the Jewish groups. And we abandoned our heritage to them during the Babylonian Wars, when we said that we wanted to do the Egyptian religion. We was driven off the land, and that's what the whole Tanakh history is about. That how we broke the covenant, and how that we went into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. Now, I got videos showing date and timelines for all the books in the Tanakh. I got a book you know what I'm saying, the video showing dates and timeline. So if you want to know all the dates and timeline, look at them. Look at that video, and it'll help you, because each event, each book happened at a certain time and so forth. And I got the history. But this is what we Hebrews said. We was driven off the land, and we had lied to the Creator, and there was a whole bunch going on. But this is what we said when you break it all down to, and this is the history that the enemies can't change, and this is the history that those other Israelite organizations need to be on, because this is the history to prove who we are, and that them other history that they use are myths, and how you can't prove that we are Israelite by no myths, and that we have to have truth that you can see. And this is the truth right here in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44. I got videos showing how close Africa is to the promised land is to Egypt. It's in running distance. I got plenty of videos. I got a couple of videos recently done showing how close the promised land is to Egypt. It's in running distance, and how we Hebrews said that we was going back to Egypt during the Babylonian wars, and that how we said we was going there to stay, because all the things that was happening to us bad was because we wasn't in Africa doing their religion. So we had a messed up mentality, and that would cause our enslavement. As Prophet Moses said that the Hebrews will be taken back to Egypt in ships. Egypt mean house of bondage, and we know that the Hebrews ran to Egypt, so they couldn't be possibly taken to Egypt in ships. And there's an S on the end of ships in chapter 28, 68 Deuteronomy. It's ships on the end of that S, and that how America is the Egypt that we was taken to, this bondage. But if you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that thou hast spoken to us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So, we went into Africa, and we never returned. And how Africa is a short distance to the promised land, a real short distance. And how we never returned after the Babylonians were defeated by the Persians. And then how, these are the Hebrews that would have been there to reunite with us coming out of Africa, if we had came out of Africa after the Babylonian wars. See, if you Hebrews can understand that the Hebrews that went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah never returned back to the promised land when the Persians defeated the Babylonians, and how that we have the history of Ezra, Haggai, Zechariah, Esther, Nehemiah, and Zechariah. Those Hebrews would have wrote, about the Queen of Heaven worshipers coming back to the promised land, and how they changed their mind, but that didn't happen, and how we are the descendants of those people that ran into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. Here go another verse showing that everybody went into Africa. Like I say, this is during the Babylonian wars, and if you people that's coming into heritage can understand this, that we ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. All the tribes, because it never was any 10 lost tribes, and that how that'll make it easier for you to understand, history and what's going on with us today. But if you look right here, and all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans wasn't nothing but Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi was called Scythians. That's their code name in history, is Scythian. And how the Scythians made up the Chaldean army, and how did they chased us into Africa. It's going to be these folks right here. These folks right here. These folks right here. And then before they chased us into Africa, Assyria was having problems with them. I got videos explaining how Assyria let them people come up out the Caucasus Mountain and start kicking it in Assyria, and then how did they changed on Assyria. Assyria let them start kicking it, and then they got deep on Assyria, and then started to take Assyria off, and then how Assyria needed our fighters. We was on Egyptian religion since the Jeroboam days, that the Egyptian religion didn't get cleaned up but for a brief second, and how that was under King Josiah, that it be King Hezekiah's great grandson, and how King Hezekiah was around during the Assyrian problems, and how that the tribes were still home. They were still at home in the promised land, and how the tribes would be home during King Josiah time. And that was at the end of the Assyrian Empire, and how Assyria was destroyed by the Babylonians, and how that the Hebrews would be there during Prophet Jeremiah time and Prophet Ezekiel time, and how we would all run into Africa, as I just showed the verses saying that how we wanted to worship the Egyptian religion. If you Hebrews coming into heritage can understand that, then it'll make it easier for you, and you can bypass all that other garbage that them other Israelite organizations teach. And I ain't trying to sow no disunity. I'm trying to sow some unity, because really it's no other history besides what I'm showing in the false history that them other Israelites using those Jewish myths and so forth, that 10 lost tribes stuff and that 70 AD stuff. It's like 5-6 big organizations that's using that false history, and they got thousands of members, but those thousands of members don't have no alternative. But now they do, because the Israelite Brotherhood is showing you that those histories is off, and that how it never was in the 10 lost tribes, and that how wasn't no Hebrews around in the New Testament. So if you coming into your heritage and then you can understand this, then man, it's gonna be easy for you. You're gonna be home free. But the most important thing is to worship Almighty Yah. And I believe you worshiping Almighty Yah is what got you this far. It's what got you this far is how you know that you an Israelite. I believe you believing in Almighty Yah is what, you didn't came this far. Because if it wasn't for Almighty Yah, you might be still confused a little bit. Them Hebrew that's in them other Israelite organizations that's confused a little bit, they gonna come out of it, cause the Creator say that everybody gonna know the truth, and that we all gonna know the truth. So from the big all the way to the small. So if we all gonna know the truth and the Creator said, then it's just a matter of time before those other Israelite organizations get around to this history that I'm showing. And I ain't trying to be the big boss. Well, I lead the Israelite Brotherhood, ain't no question about that. But I'm not trying to say that everybody is under my control. Even though it would be nice if the Israelite community had the Israelite Brotherhood as the spokesperson for us, we can get a whole lot done. And in the history that I show, you can see. The history that I show, you can see. Okay, look, no 10 lost tribes. All right, look. You see 1 Chronicles, chapter 5, verse 18. These are who the Assyrians needed. The sons of Reuben, the Gadites, the half tribe of Manasseh, valiant men, men able to bear buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow and lift and skillful in war, were 440,703 score that went out to war. All right. And the Yah of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Talcabanazer, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala and Harbor and Har unto the river Gozan unto this day. Those Hebrews are who the Assyrians needed, because they was fighting against the people that was coming out the Caucasus Mountain and around Turkey, them underground cities and so forth, them underground cities in Turkey that they was coming out of there, and how they was starting to take Assyria over. They had already snuck around the back way and then got into Babylon. They came through the Zogras from the Caucasus around Iran. Look, from the Caucasus, man, around Iran. Man, you just drop on down. Look, you see the Caucasus right there. You hug that little coast. You get on to the Zogras, and then you come straight on into Babylon from the back. And then that's what they did. And then they took Babylon over, and then Assyria was trying to get them folks up out of there. And then how they come got our fighters. And then how you know that they come got the fighters is if you go to 2 Chronicles. Now, this is killing that 10 lost tribe myth, and this is killing that we went to America before the transatlantic slave trade myth. See, if you Hebrews don't bite for that, and then you can understand that there never was any 10 lost tribes, then, man, you on the right tracks. You on the right tracks. Look here. And Hezekiah, this is in 715 BC. This is like 7 years after the so-called Assyrian captivity. All right, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. Now, he done sent to all Israel and Judah. Now, how could he send to all Israel and Judah if everybody is taken away during the Assyrian times? And I can show that the Assyrians had a relationship, had a covenant with the Ephraim, and the Assyrians had a covenant together, and they sold all into Egypt. So, it couldn't have been no 10 lost tribe if Ephraim know his way back and forth from Assyria, to the promised land. Let me show that real quick, and then I'm gonna show how it wasn't no 10 lost tribes. It's show how Assyria didn't take no 10 lost tribes, and how that stuff is crazy, and how them Hebrew organizations just read them Jewish myths and pick up on it and start teaching it as if it's true, and get all in the streets and start hooping and hollering, and then how the enemy just sitting in the corner laughing, popping bottles, eating a good meal off them, relaxing real good, because they see them fools in the street hooping and hollering and ain't showing no truth. And then the enemy wonder, how could they increase that? Let's give them some taxis in. That'll really encourage them. And then, man, them suckers been working for the enemy with that mess. Look, Ephraim feedeth on the wind and followeth after the east wind. He daily increaseth lies and desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and oil is carried into Egypt. All is carried into Egypt by the Assyrians. I mean by Ephraim from Assyria. So, it couldn't have been no 10 lost tribes. And then 5 years after the so-called Assyrian captivity, Hezekiah had everybody at home. Look, and it come to pass. Let me see. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Elohim at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah. For the king had taken counsel, and all his princes and the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. For they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation, so they established a decree and make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel at Jerusalem, for they had not done it of a long time, in such sort as it was written. So he sent a letter from Beersheba all the way to Dan. You know, this King Hezekiah. So them Hebrews wasn't in no secret captivity with the Syrians. Looks, there go Beersheba right there. And he sent the letter all the way to Dan. Now, this is King Hezekiah. All right. So we know he sent the letter. And then he said this. So the post went with his letters. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remain of you that are escaped out of the hands of the king of Assyria. So they didn't escape the hands of the king of Assyria. They didn't escape out of his hands. Why would King Hezekiah say that they escaped the Assyrians and then they didn't? And then he sent the letter from Beersheba all the way to Dan throughout the whole inheritance, as I showed. And then as you read down, you'll see, nevertheless, the verse of Asher, Manasseh, Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. You know, so they came to Jerusalem. And then as you read, look, so the post passed from city to city, from the country of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn. Nevertheless, the verse of Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. And then as you keep on reading, many gonna say, for a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim, Manasseh, Ashkar, and Zebulun had not cleansed themselves, yet they did eat the Passover. Otherwise, then it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Elohim pardon everyone. And then as you keep reading, man, he gonna telling you that he dealing with the whole tribes of Israel. Man, this the messed up thing is that King Hezekiah tried to put us on our feet and then get us on the right path. And then his son Manasseh, after King Hezekiah passed away, his son Manasseh didn't keep the struggle going and had the opportunity to gather us and keep us on the right path. And then how the Babylonians, the Assyrians took him to Babylon, Manasseh, and how he was freed because he changed his ways, you know, and prayed to the Creator. And then the Creator let him come on home. And then that's what the Babylonians had got defeated by Assyria. Remember I showed how they took those three tribes, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, to fight with them, and they would, you know, whoop the Babylonians. So the Assyrians let him come home, but then Manasseh would have a son, Amon, who would be wicked, and he didn't stay on the throne long, and then he got killed. And then how King Josiah would be put on the throne, and how King Josiah would clean us up from that Egyptian religion. He would clean that Egyptian religion up. And then how the Egyptians would kill him. This Egyptian right here killed King Josiah. If you Hebrews that's coming into heritage can understand that King Josiah was killed by this dude Necho. And they got his statue in New York, as well as they got the statue of the obelisk that we was enslaved with in Egypt, that went up at the beginning of our enslavement in Egypt. Our ancestors would have touched this. It's possible Moses would have touched this and seen this obelisk, you know, and that how it was erected during our enslavement in Egypt, and how that they brought that over and set it up here in Central Park. And then how Necho killed King Josiah. And then, you know, we would go back to the Egyptian religion, and then that'll be in the book of Jeremiah, how we said that we was going to Egypt to live and to have food and to pour out drink offerings unto the Queen of Heaven, that Is Patah Ra religion. You know, and how we went into Africa to do that and never returned home. And that's all the tribes, as I'm showing it. There was no 10 lost tribes. And then all those tribes not mentioned during King Hezekiah time gonna be mentioned during his great grandson time, King Josiah, you know. And then you'll see the King Josiah cleaned up all Israel, the whole community, and got rid of the idols and everything, like it was a prophecy for him, going all the way back to Jeroboam days, since 931 BC, and how he cleaned up Israel just like how that prophecy calls for. But then the Egyptians would kill him and put us on the Egyptian religion, and how we would go into Africa. It's that simple. It's no other history. And how we was enslaved. You see, but these tribes so did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simon, even unto Naphtali with their mattucks round about, and how he cleaned up the whole Israel, you know. And that was our only chance to be right and not be enslaved and be in the conditions that we are in now, is if we would have followed King Josiah and stayed on the path that he stayed on. But we straddled the fence. And, you know, when the Egyptians killed him, we went to the Egyptian religion and we was driven off the land into Africa. And then how if these other Hebrew organizations ain't teaching that, then they teaching a lie. Because it never was any 10 lost tribes, as I just showed that it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, and that how we Hebrews abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, and then how that they forged false history. You know, that's like, you know, they trying to elevate the black Jews. You know, you coming into history, you Israelites that's coming into history, you gonna run up against this too. You know, some of you already think that the black Jews without no curses are our relatives or foreparents or something. They would have to be something like our foreparents, being that they over there still in the land where they took us from, you know, where we was enslaved from, and that they would have an older heritage than we do. But that's false. And how that the Igabus and the Limbas come off a Yemenite source, and how Teman, I got a video explaining this, how Teman is Yemen, Yemen is Teman, that's Eliphaz's son, and how that they would convert to Judaism a few times, and how that they would go into Africa. I got videos explaining how that those converted Jews would go into Africa and convert the African tribes in Zimbabwe and Mozambique and Nigeria and so forth, and how that them Jews had trade routes also into Africa, but the Edomite Jews would get to those Africans and convert them, and then that's where you get your pigmented Jews that didn't go into captivity from. And how Hebrews be confused about them, saying, them our brothers, them our brothers, them our brothers and sisters. But they don't have a clue what's going on, and they don't understand the history, and that the majority of the Hebrews that bleed like that gonna come off those Jewish myths, that 10 lost tribes or that 70 AD. And then that's like, you know, I show in the video how all the people that try to claim Israelite heritage today that don't come off that 70 AD and 10 lost tribe lie is trying to come off Wicked Solomon, saying that they left during Wicked Solomon time, and that they are Hebrews from Solomon times. And I got a video covering all this, showing that how that's impossible, because the temple was around and the Creator was around during Solomon time. The Creator stayed with us all the way up to the time that we was driven off the land, all the way up to the time that we went into Africa, because the prophet Jeremiah went and spoke to the Creator and then told us to go back to the promised land and stay there. So how the Creator was all the way there with us from the time that we exodus to the time that we ran into Africa. And that how that those Hebrews couldn't have left the promised land during Solomon times. I'm talking about the Ethiopian Jews tell that lie, and the Igabus tell that lie, and how ain't no Hebrews left the promised land while the creator was around and wasn't nothing said about it, and then how they went to them lands and stayed. See, our enemies been popping game for a long time, and then I show how those Jewish rabbis has been trying to help them Igaboos, with that lie, and then even got them over here in the community trying to teach the Israelites that lie, and that how all the Hebrews that believe in that mess and in that lie gonna be confused and then don't know no truth, and we ain't gonna never have no unity long as we believe in the falsehood that our enemies put out for us, because it's not meant for us to have unity or truth with the lies that they put out. And how all the Hebrews that believe in the 10 lost tribes in that 70 AD lie, that believe in that stuff, our enemies are slick, and how did they, want us to think that the black Jews, that we have to come through them in order to be Israelites, or that this is another image that the Jews trying to put up in folks' mind, is that they are accepting some black Jews, and that it is black Jews, and that they embracing the Limbas and the Igaboos because they come off the Yemen source. They gonna have that Y and J DNA the same as the Jews got. You see? I know it's tough with you Hebrews coming into heritage, and that it's a whole lot of information that you have to absorb. But if you listen to me, the Israelite Brotherhood, if you listen to the Israelite Brotherhood, I kind of got it mapped out for us, and I'm doing this, because I want us to have our heritage, and I ain't trying to tax no Hebrews. I ask that you subscribe so you can keep up with the videos, and I also ask that you tell other Hebrews to watch these videos so they can get an understanding of what happened to us. But like I say, you Hebrews that's just coming into heritage, man, you up against a lot. I know coming into heritage, these ups and downs. The good things that's up is that you know who you are, and that you know that you're Israelite. And the downside is that, all these Hebrews got all these 50 different doctrines, and how it's really no unity. And look, you got some of these Hebrews talking about that they the leaders of Israel. I done seen some of them post videos talking about that they the leaders of all Israel, and they don't know no history. They don't know no history. They don't know nothing. And then they be teaching out the New Testament, and then they talking about that they the leaders of all Israel. See, they are delusional. And it's a whole bunch of delusional Hebrews to think that they the leaders of the Israelite community, and they don't know no history. They don't know no history, and then they teach lies. They delusional. And one day, I pray it's going to come a time that all that's going to cease, and that them Hebrews just got them secret agendas that we going to, know who they are, and we're going to be able to point them out, and then that make their agenda ineffective. If you know the truth, that make the enemy's agenda ineffective. It can't work because we know what time it is. All right, Hebrews, I know you Hebrews coming into heritage, man, is up against a lot, but if you listen to the Israelite Brotherhood, you will get some understanding. Shalom, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.